And once again, we have William Byron early in the season basically establishing himself up top towards the top, if not the best, when it comes to who is going to be in contention for the championship this year. He's definitely continuing to be a favorite. I'm going to move this back a little bit. It's like really on to me. But welcome you guys in. It's good to have you guys in here. Even if the race necessarily wasn't what everyone was hoping for. But either way, I'll take a probably 4 out of 10, I'd say, natural race over a complete and utter just shit show. Real quick, I want you guys in the chat to let me know what number out of 10, 1 being the worst, 10 being an absolute barn burner classic. What's your grade of this race? Let me know. Spam all of them in the chat. I see some 24 out of 100s. Let me know what you think. Poll is up on the community tab, by the way. There are some issues YouTube's having with it where it basically makes you open up the poll itself. Unfortunately, I don't know what the hell the deal is. You almost have to hit the comment part to vote. It's really dumb. So if there's any problems with that, just letting you know that in advance. Also, looking in or at the broadcast right now, looks like Corey LaJoy has been taken on a stretcher, probably dehydrated, I would have to think. So we'll keep you updated on anything that comes out about him. But overall, I would say this is a race that the first 2 stages, to me, had me hooked. I thought there was some really good stuff to look at. But the final stage, not as much. The really cool thing, and I cannot show you this because NASCAR posted it, and I don't want to on their Twitter, and I don't want to mess too much up. It was shown on the broadcast. There is conflict with a JGR driver and a former JGR driver, Kyle Busch and Christopher Bell, not seeing eye to eye, both height-wise as well as what happened on the racetrack. And Kyle looks mad. Kyle looks very mad. So there's also a little bit of a maybe rivalry brewing between the two of them. But let's get into this race. The 2024 Echo Park Automotive Grand Prix was 2 hours, 43 minutes, and 9 seconds long, 68 laps, 11 lead changes among 7 leaders, and 2 caution flags, those being the stages. Those were the only cautions we had today. There were no cautions for incident, though there was incident out there at different points. William Byron is your winner of this race. By the way, we'll get to those super chats in a moment, among other things. But William Byron is your winner by about 0.7 of a second over Christopher Bell, who put on an intense charge up towards the front. At one point, I believe he was 10 seconds back with 9 to go, finishes 0.7 of a second back at the checkered flag. So good comeback, or at least charge up there for him. Probably just a lap or 2 late, and maybe getting caught up behind Ty Gibbs, but racing for second. I don't see either of them backing down, so I'm not really thinking anything will come out of that. Ty Gibbs in third. Fourth is Bowman. In the Gen 7 era, this has to be his worst finish at COTA. So terrible, a 4th place run. 5th is Tyler Reddick. AJ Allmendinger 6th. 7th is Chastain. Buescher in 8th. Kyle Busch in 9th, and MTJ coming home with the top 10 run today. Then you got Joey Logano, the top Penske driver out there, and I believe, would he be the 2nd highest Ford? He finishes 11th, which not good for Logano's normal standards, but for how bad he has been this year, or at least how bad his luck has been, anything I think is what he'll take at this point. Then you got Ryan Blaney in 12th. 13th is Chase Briscoe, Denny Hamlin 14th, and Bubba Wallace, after early troubles at pretty much his worst racetrack, comes home with a 15th place run. Chase Elliott got spun a couple times, though, other than, and I think he got penalized also for course cutting, but 16th place run for Chase Elliott, just a mediocre run for what so far for many Elliott fans has been a mediocre, disappointing year. Justin Haley 17th. 18th is Kyle Larson. Austin Cindric 19th. And finishing out the top 20 is Zane Smith. In 21st, Shane Van Gisbergen. Disappointing run for him. Lost first gear, and it really affected him badly in this race. John Hunter Nemechek in 22nd. Carson Hocevar, 23rd. 24th is Priest. Then LaJoy in 25th. 26th will be Austin Dillon. Todd Gilliland in 27th. Kaz Grala, 28th. 29th is Stenhouse and Kobayashi coming home in the 30th spot. 31st is Harrison Burton, Daniel Suarez, 32nd, 33rd, Eric Jones, 34th, Bad Brad Keselowski. That's your top lead lap guys. Those are your lead lap guys, top 34. Two guys a lap down, 35th place Noah Gragson and 36th place Josh Berry. And then two guys 2 laps down, Timmy Hill in 37th and Daniel Hemrick in 38th. Michael McDowell, the only driver out of this race. We will look at Super Chats in a moment. But in the meantime, I'm going to put the post-race results here. These should be the official results. I don't think we're going to have as many penalties, anything like that, go on as we did in the Xfinity race yesterday. But overall, before we dive in depth about this race, let's get to 100 likes on the stream. And I think we're like 10 away from hitting 74.7K. So be sure to subscribe if you're new. We have NASCAR Weekly Podcast on this channel this Wednesday, so plenty of stuff going on, plenty to talk about. But overall, I'd say a 4 out of 10. I think people are overreacting if they're like, this race was a 2 or a 1 or awful. I see people being like, Dale Jr. was right. I don't think it's the track, guys. Watkins Glen is a great track, and we have this same kind of racing. Sonoma, in the Gen 6 era, before they changed up the layout of it, had great racing. It's the car. The car just is not good at road courses and generally isn't good at short tracks either when it comes to racing. I think people are overreacting by trying to stick a fork in it. I mean, if you've been to a COTA race, you know how much of a draw this is to demographics that NASCAR just plainly sucks at attracting. And Dale Jr. even walked it back. Dale Jr. walked back his comments. He had to walk it back on Reddit because I don't know if he did it on Twitter, but he walked it back on Reddit a little bit. But let's chill for a second, all right? This is not worse than an F1 race. This is just a run-of-the-mill kind of below average NASCAR race. Like, come on, people. We don't need to completely overreact because we didn't have Bristol Road Course Edition. It's just that this has generally been a pretty good year overall. So let's chill on that one. I'm looking if there's any updates on LaJoy. Nothing I can see at the moment. Yeah, nothing, no updates at the moment. Let me know if they do it on the broadcast. I'm going to keep that muted, but if there's a fight or something, I'll see. Real quick, look at the super chats, and we'll jump into talking about this race. Not much highlight-wise happened, but I think there was better racing through the pack, especially in the first 2 stages, than people would like to admit, because everyone just sort of has their angle they're going at it with on this one. But real quick, first super chat here from Napa Racing Fan for the 2, saying more fans will agree with Dale Jr. after this race. Probably. Again, just take a day or two and not go too knee-jerk about this thing. Soupy Spirit, thank you for the 2. I like stage cautions. Listen, with the next gen, that it's probably required. Again, I think it's better without stage cautions, but it's a car issue more than a track issue or track type issue. Oh, look, they're interviewing Jeff Gordon. I'm that far behind, by the way, if they've stopped interviewing him by now. It's just YouTube TV has been really off today. Garabuki, thank you for the 5. I normally would say all that for a Byron win, but there was no all that going on. Yeah, I'd say that's fair. Scott McNew for the 10. 5 out of 10. Literally straight down the middle for me. Wish they would consider having a couple different compound tires for road courses, like what IndyCar and F1 does. I think it would help tremendously. I think it could be worth a shot. I just don't know if when you look at the cost saving that the teams do, and the way NASCAR pushes it, if they would approve that. I'd be cool, especially if you had there was a rumor about a possibility of a Dutch exhibition race for NASCAR. And if it's a road course, I would be down to test that out there. Like, worst comes to it, you're just sort of wasting an exhibition. The excitement of bringing people out to a NASCAR race in another country will pay for itself. But on the positive, if you ball out and have an amazing race, then I think you're looking at a great showing for a country that does not have NASCAR in general in it. But I think, two, you could have a solution. So I think it's worth a shot. I agree with everyone on the horsepower argument. Definitely. I want that. I know there's some people that don't. Jarrett, we need the caution clock back. Very funny. That is very funny. But I'd say, worth a shot in an exhibition race. I wouldn't want to test it in a points race just because I think it's unfair to the teams. But again, worth a shot. Reverend Rasheem Hall Stewart, thank you for the 2. Do you think Chase Elliott needs to leave Hendrick Motorsports? No. Drivers get into... it is very early in the season. He could turn it around. Look at Tyler Reddick and how bad he started last year, and then he won COTA, and it all turned around. But 2, sometimes drivers just get into career slumps. I mean, it could be much worse. I'm a Dale Jr. fan. I would know. I think people are overreacting a bit. Is Chase Elliott good right now? No, he's middle of the pack. But can it be turned around? Sure, maybe. Now at this point, when it's years into this, since 2022, when he was the definitive best driver in the field, maybe you can talk about a crew chief change. The only thing that I can think of, though, is changing with the 48. But the 48, you still need to feel this thing out because Blake Harris only had a few races last year with Alex Bowman before the injury. That's the only issue I see, because I don't see you back and forth changing anything. Oh yeah, by the way, a little off topic here, but Jonathan in the chat brings us up. Michigan might get some Aurora Borealis tonight, the lights, because there's a giant sunstorm. Again, way off topic, but I find this really cool and more interesting than the race we just saw. There's a giant sunstorm, I guess, that hit Earth. And if you're having internet issues, it's partially causing that, as well as electronic issues. It's probably why there's been little glitches in the last day or two on YouTube and other things like that, just because it's just difficult with all of that. So check out the sky tonight if it's clear. Aurora Borealis in your kitchen, if you know that reference. A couple more super chats here, then we'll roll right on into the race itself. Looks like they've ended all coverage of the race. I think they hit their window. So for once, Fox doesn't go over the window and then immediately sign off. We got some driver interviews. Good stuff there. A Prada, thank you for your 3rd super chat on the channel for 10. Appreciate it. A second Jeff Gordon-like spanking at a road course by William Byron. William is quickly becoming one of the weekly favorites everywhere he goes. Another solid top 5 for Bowman. A great 8 out of 10 race, you say? Again, I'm glad you're positive about it. I will agree with you on the William Byron front. And looking at now, I believe William Byron is only... What is William Byron? 26? 26, yes. Because, oh, Jesus Christ, I'm older than him. And taller than him. Sorry, I'm just spitting it all out as it goes. Yeah, I mean, I think anywhere that William Byron goes, he's a threat to win at this point. I think he's clearly established that, and he's only going to get better. I mean, he's just entering what the prime of a NASCAR driver is. So the field should be worried long-term about him. Whether or not he wins multiple championships depends on how that team can get through the format. I think it's more of a format thing than a performance and talent thing, because William Byron and that team are performing well. And the driver has the talent. It's just not, it's just more difficult because of the format, because it's a lot of the times a crapshoot, which I think is unfair to Byron. Sleeve, thank you for the 13-month member chat, saying the mosaic of mid That's one way to put it. Eloquently put, I will say. Soupy Spirit for another 5 here. Track limits exist for a reason. Chase Briscoe would have won the Roval back in 2021 if they didn't. Rules are rules, people. I think okay, we'll talk about the track limit thing really quick, and then we'll get into the race. There's not much to go over in the race, so we can talk about these subjects more in depth here. The thing with track limits is I'm not necessarily against it per se, but I do think that maybe, again, we talked about it after the Xfinity race yesterday. Maybe you put a few tire barriers up, whether they're big ones like the Roval that was a problem that first year, or if you maybe, I don't know, put them up like they are at Sonoma. Something like that might work. Just walls that you can move out of the way, but the way it is now where you only do it in like 1 or 2, or I think at this point it's like 3 or 4 corners, but you don't do it anywhere else. It's like, that's what I kind of don't get. If you're not going to have the track limits all over the track, why is it just specifically this one? I get, yeah, they could cut it or whatever, but NASCAR has played fast and loose with their own rules before. They could just, whenever they want, just say, yeah, that's wrong, get out of here. I mean, Ross Chastain nearly exploited the rule at the Indy Road Course a couple years ago, and NASCAR pretty definitively and pretty quickly said it wouldn't count, even though had he just slowed it a little bit before then and then gunned it, he would have been under all the rules and could have competed for the win. So if NASCAR wants to put track limits in, I just think that there need to be more kind of common sense ways to go about it, I guess is the way I'd put it. And then last 2 here, and then we'll go right on into the race itself, or 3, I should say. Jacob, thank you for the 5. They should try swapping Alan Gustafson and Greg Ives' positions at Hendrick. Greg and Chase already have experience and a NASCAR championship together. Maybe. That they have good chemistry. I know that Ives did struggle a little bit, though, as a Cup crew chief. I remember as a junior fan, and then when he was over with Bowman, it wasn't the greatest. I know it was a difficult time for Hendrick, but maybe a second chance, a little more experience could help. I don't think Alan Gustafson, though, should be pushed aside. He's a great crew chief. It's just kind of like you see with other crew chief driver combos. Sometimes you need a breath of fresh air, and it might not even be that time yet. We don't know. They could turn it around. They are a talented duo, and maybe Mr. H just lets them work it out. Fred Dog, thank you for the 5. Crybaby Kyle Busch going after Bell. Remember when people rooting for him at Daytona? Thank goodness that stupid goodwill tour is over. I don't think so. But I've grown to really like Kyle Busch in the last few years, which is funny. I don't think that 10-year-old me would have ever thought that. And then NRF8 for the 30-month member chat. Damn. KB finally had a decent day. Holy shit, 30 months. I appreciate it. And he did have a decent day. Let's go into this race. Again, not too much here. William Byron did win the pole, broke the track record. And a lot of people going into it knew he was going to be fast, but we didn't necessarily know, is he going to be up front at all, or is it just like a fast lap and then it'll fall back to 5th and the Toyotas take over? Because they were the ones that had the pace. We kind of all knew going in the Toyotas were going to be fast. They've been fast everywhere. But he led early on, and he was challenged. It was not like he just completely ran away from the field at different points, and he wasn't the fastest out there the entire day, but he had that speed. Early on, though, you have some contact between LaJoie, Truex, and Bubba Wallace. Some toe link issues for the 7 and the 23, though those did get repaired under the Infinity cautions because they lasted so damn long when we did have them. Again, there wasn't much of major highlight to be said about this race. It was, a lot of spins, single car spins, guys getting in each other, a few track limit penalties, leaders and everyone kind of near him, most actually pitted before stage 1 ended. And then Christopher Bell got the win in it over Suarez, McDowell, Cindric, and Austin Dillon. Stenhouse, Byron, Gibbs, Reddick, and Ross Chastain, the top 10 in stage 1. But again, nothing really too much to write home about. And the same thing with stage 2. You have the restart. It's McDowell and Bell up front. Bell retains the lead. Those guys trying to push it to about lap 23 to 25 on fuel to try and make it a 2-stop race. at least from the way that Larry Mack was kind of laying it out. Bell wouldn't last in the lead very long. Byron would get it, but he would at least last in the top 5 and top 10, though he did spin Kyle Larson at one point, which probably will get ill will from Hendrick fans. I think the biggest spin of note today was Stenhouse spinning Kobayashi, and not spinning him, just flat out dumping him again, like he did at Indy last year. I don't know if it's just the broadcasters didn't exactly bring us the entire story of what happened or what, but it is kind of odd that it's the same driver again, and it was clearly intentional as well. But again, that's about the biggest thing we saw. Same thing happens. Leaders pit. Less than stage 2 pit before the stage end. But Denny Hamlin gets a stage win over Ryan Blaney. Martin Truex Jr., Todd Gilliland gets some stage points there. Same with Ryan Preece. Brad Keselowski, this will be the only time we really mention him today because, you know, he was more often than not backwards than forwards. And not in the fun Kyle Busch way either. John Hunter Nemechek 7th. Byron, Hemrick, and Barry rounding out the top 10 of stage 2. But again, not too much. Final stage rolls up. We have Byron versus Chastain. Byron locks him up. The only probably imperfect thing that Byron did all day long. Ross Chastain would get the lead. And around that time, you know, maybe a little bit later, we're looking and is that Chase Elliott I see? Is that Chase Elliott I see in the top 5? No. He cut the course and immediately got penalized as soon as he entered the top 5. Do I think he would competed for the win? No. Do I think that he, as long as he didn't get spun, would finish top 5? If not, you know, if he didn't, maybe top 8? Yes. I know for his standards, that's not really a big deal, but let's also be real about this. Chase Elliott is not the king of road courses he was in the Gen 6 era. He's not. He's a top 10 guy. He's still very talented, but it's clear at this point that guys like Reddick, like Byron, they are clearly ahead of him. Bell is up there. Ty Gibbs will only continue to improve. I will say I was very impressed with Ty Gibbs today. He was my pick. Maybe not my first pick, but yeah, had Elliott not gotten in that kerfuffle, to quote Kevin Harvick and Ken Squire, yeah, I think he probably would have finished. I mean, I'm looking at the finishing order now. He'd probably have finished 6th or 7th, maybe a top 5. So it wasn't like he was slow today. It's just bad luck happened. You also had SVG starting to run in the top 10, though he would lose first gear. And when you have long green flag runs at a road course, you're going to need first gear. Just because of the shifting, you'll be in first gear at some point, even during a green run. And then getting onto pit road, too, from a stop to get out. And I think, he finished 21st? Yeah, he finished 21st on the day. Just poor run for him. But that happened. Not every race is going to be a perfect Chicago race or be like COTA yesterday, where it's like, well, he's good, but, you know, and running up front just didn't get the win kind of thing. Sometimes you're going to struggle, and that's kind of his first taste of struggling in Cup. Luckily, he didn't get caught up in a, you know, what seemed like a certified COTA crap finish, but it is what it is. Though it does suck for you guys who picked him in the chat. Now, there was some other stuff, too, that happened during the run. Chastain would start losing time because of a flat-spotted tire. This is how Byron would kind of pounce on him, get the lead from him. And other than the pit stop, I mean, when it came to the provisional lead, Byron pretty much was off to the races for the second half of this race. Pit stops would begin, the final stops, with about 25 to go. Bowman would pit one lap, and then after that, it would be Chastain and Byron, and then Gibbs right after that, with Bell, I believe, pitting before them, too. Bowman would cycle out past the 1 in the 54. Wouldn't last, but I think that's probably the reason why he was competing up there. Solid top 4 finish. He wasn't going to beat them off speed alone, so he had to do something. Chastain struggled on that cycle of pit stops as well. I think he had a slow stop, as well as Byron just having a really good stop. I mean, again, that team and driver was pretty much near perfect. And with 16 to go, He cycles out to the lead again. You have Bell, I think at this point it's like 12 seconds back or whatever. But from there, it was just Bell trying to charge forward, couldn't close out the deal, got caught in lap traffic and racing guys like Bowman and Chastain and Gibbs. Can't remember, I'm forgetting his teammate's name. But Byron just was too good today. And it's kind of like some of the other races we've said. If some of these guys, just go out there and are just at the top of their game, you got to be perfect to beat them. And it's just, even if it means perfect in luck or perfect in stuff cycling out the right way for you. And if it's just a little imperfect, you're not going to beat them. And Byron is one of those drivers now. But with that, we are 6 races into the year. A week left in March, going into Richmond for Easter weekend. I know a lot of y'all are going to groan at that and be like, oh no, Richmond. But if we can get the kind of race we had at Bristol in some way with the tire wear, which I think at least tire wear wise, we can have some tire wear. Strategy could be really fun on that one. It's a night race, so people will be happy with that. But yeah, 6th of the season done, like Spencer says in the chat. Is Bowman getting momentum? Maybe. This is probably his consistently best track, so I don't want to say necessarily that he's back. But overall, I mean, just kind of a mediocre race. We'll have them sometimes. And then, yeah, Richmond also, like Spencer saying, is a qualifier race for the Dash for Cash and Xfinity. So, Need for Speed saying, oh, you'll miss it because it's the Avenged Sevenfold that night. Well, you know what? As a fellow Death Bat here, I appreciate that. Have fun. They're awesome live. The closer to the stage you get, the better, too. It's a ton of fun. But that pretty much covers it. I mean, if there's anything you guys really want to look at, I mean, next week will be the last race on Big Fox until Talladega. But other than that, I don't know. There's not really too much to talk about today. It's just kind of one of those chill, straightforward, just meh races. I can check one more time. Let's see. We have alternate angles of Kyle Busch confronting Christopher Bell. Yeah, Busch looks pretty mad. Busch looks really mad. Wow, that's funny. Let's see, is there anything on Corey LaJoy? I guess I'll update you on that, and that'll be the last little bit that we look at for this stream. I don't see anything. I'll look them up really quick, see if there's a difference of reports if I look them up. Not seeing anything really about LaJoy other than just angry Bubba Wallace fans. But to be fair, when you go on Twitter, when are NASCAR fans in general, let alone Bubba fans, not upset? So, I mean, that's just Twitter. Gotta hate that website. But I think that's about going to cover it. There's not really any big news. I'll get through these. We'll go through these super chats, and then we'll call it a night. How about that? Not really too much. Bobby Birch, 1000. Thank you for the 1 month member chat. As a Busch fan, I wanted Kyle Busch to fight Bell. As a fan of just fighting in general, because as Kevin Harvick would say, I like fights. We should have more fights. I wanted him to fight too. And I don't dislike either of them. I just think fights are fun in NASCAR. And an A Prada for the 10. Chase Elliott fans need to take a deep breath. In 6 races, Chase's worst finish is 19th. He's not having a Logano-type year. He likely would have finished 5th to 7th had it not been for some bad luck. Again, I think that's the level-headed approach to it that probably should be taken. You know, if they are running low and not too great, just like running 19th every day or every week, yeah, I think at that point you should look at changing some stuff up. But at the moment, wait it out for the year, and if it doesn't get any better, then make a change. Mr. Bad Guy for the 2. Being a Wallace fan is pain. Yeah, I can see why. I mean, it's just, there are times that he just has really, really bad luck. But again, don't hang your head too much. I mean, Kansas is coming up, and 2311 is super fast at Kansas. I've seen them win 2 races there between Bubba's win and Reddick's win, and then he just Toyota in general's fast there. So that's gonna be one circled on your calendar there. And you know what? Richmond ain't that bad either. But I think, again, that's going to cover it, y'all. I appreciate you coming out. We will be live on this channel Wednesday night. NASCAR Weekly Podcast. Going to be a lot of fun. We got a lot of stuff to talk about, or at least fun. And you know what? If anything else, you can look forward to the random driver segment. Like Galore, I'll let you know in advance, 400. But that's about going to cover it. Any last words? Yeah, I think we're good for the night. Y'all have a good one. I'm going to enjoy the fact that I get about an hour and a half of sunlight outside today, and enjoy my night. I hope you enjoy yours, and I'll see you next time. Later, y'all.